The PS5 at this point is about halfway through its expected life cycle, and while Sony have continued their recent history of putting out great first-party games, there's still plenty of franchises in their portfolio that haven't yet made the leap to the console. So I'm Sly for WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 classic PlayStation franchises still missing from the PS5. Number 10, Ape Escape. Fans have been desperate to go bananas once again for over a decade at this point, and they're still waiting. The first Ape Escape game was released in 1999 for the PS1 and made history by being the first game that required the DualShock controller, otherwise known as the first PlayStation controller to have analog sticks instead of just a D-pad. The story follows an evil monkey who tries to go full Planet of the Apes by making super intelligence helmets for his monkey friends to go take over the world, and your character has to go around and catch them all. It was good, solid fun that required you to figure out how to catch the monkeys with the tools that you had, and the series quickly became iconic in its own right. However, the last main game came out for the PS2 in 2005, and other than a few minigame spin-offs and cameos, we'll never forget Solid Snake having a heart-to-heart with a monkey dressed like him, the series has been dormant. With the DualSense controller being one of the best out there, and something with a lot of bells and whistles that often go underused, a new Ape Escape would be just the thing to properly utilise that impressive bit of kit. Number 9, Sly Cooper. This series is weirdly underrated because it's one of the best platformers in PlayStation history. The Sly Cooper series debuted on the PS2 with the Thievius Raccoonus, which introduced Sly Cooper and his gang as they travelled around the globe to go after the men that killed Sly's family and stole a family heirloom that contained all of the thieving secrets of Sly's ancestors. While the first game was a bit basic in terms of a platformer, the second changed up the entire formula, placing the more linear levels with missions within larger open stages. This change stuck, with the rest of the series just getting more characters to play as, more unique places to sneak around in, and more skills to use. With the first 3 games being developed by Sucker Punch and the 4th for the PS3 being developed by Sanzaru, the series has vanished ever since 2013. With the last game ending on a cliffhanger, fans have been waiting for a continuation for quite some time. There have been discussions over the years about a film or a television adaptation, and these would be nice, but what we really need is the grand video game return of Sony's sneakiest raccoon. Number 8, Patapon. If you ever played the 2007 PSP original, then you probably still have the Patapon chant stuck in your head. Don't worry, you're not alone. Patapon. If you haven't played this game, it's a charming little rhythm title that has you guide a species of creatures called Patapons as they fight against their enemies. With strategic elements in place such as picking your units before you head into battle, there was nothing quite like it at the time. With the game originally debuting on the Sony handheld, there were 3 titles overall and a port of the original to the PS4 in 2017, a full 10 years after its original debut in Japan. They also had a cameo in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, you know, the little Smash Brothers clone that couldn't. Outside of that though, the little eyeball monsters have been quite quiet. Like with Ape Escape, with the tech of the DualSense controller, a new rhythm game on the PlayStation 5 would do really well, and its niche and quirky charm would be a welcome addition to PlayStation's first-party library. Number 7, Infamous. The second Sucker Punch series on this list. I mean, seriously, have they ever really made a bad game? Infamous first appeared on the PlayStation 3 in 2009. It was immediately praised for its superhero gameplay, story, and the moral decisions presented to the player, as you had the option to either use your powers for good or for not so good. The strange part about Infamous is that while it feels like they haven't done much with the series, there's actually quite a lot out there. There's the 2 main games following the story of the first protagonist, Cole McGrath, and then there's the downloadable standalone title where he gets turned into a vampire. Yes, I didn't know that was a thing. There were comics based off the games, and then the series jumped to the PlayStation 4 with Second Son and introduced a brand new protagonist named Delsin Rowe, and there was a follow-up to this starring one of the side characters. On top of that, there was even a Facebook game. Oh boy, remember those days? And somehow, despite all of that, it still feels like the series has plenty more in the tank. With 2024 marking a decade since Infamous's last installment, fans are more than ready to see a new entry superpowered by modern hardware. Number 6, Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal is the premier name in the car combat genre, which makes it all the stranger that a new entry hasn't been released in 10 years. With weird and twisted characters, unique vehicles, and satisfying combat where you blow up everything around you to kingdom come, the games have struck a chord with players ever since 1995. Based around the titular Twisted Metal contest where the winner would get a wish of whatever they wanted granted, the series just got darker and more bombastic as time went on, much to the delight of its fans. Now technically this franchise is on PS5 as the first 2 titles are available via PlayStation Plus Premium, but what about the future? With Anthony Mackie recently announcing at the Game Awards that the streaming series adaptation of Twisted Metal has been renewed for a second season, that's a good sign for the future of the brand. There's been talk of a new game in the works for a little while now, it just remains to be seen when this might actually apparate. Number 5, PaRappa The Rapper. All together now, kick, punch, it's all in the mind. PaRappa The Rapper is straight out of the 90s, but the humour and charm of the games is why people have never forgotten about this rhythm game series. And I mean, aside from Paper Mario, how many truly 2D characters are there in gaming? There were only 2 entries and 2 ports to new hardware, but despite there being no new games since the PlayStation 1, PaRappa The Rapper is still a recognisable character and part of PlayStation history. Even with limited cameo appearances since the original PlayStation, people are still clamouring to see the flat rapper once again. The style, the catchy tunes that just get stuck in your head, the humour, all of it has stood the test of time, and it could easily make an impact today with very little changes. We can only hope that PaRappa comes back sooner rather than later, because if there's anything the world needs more of right now, it's funky earworms sung by a flat dog. Number 4, Gravity Rush. Do you remember the Vita? Well, based on the sales numbers, you probably don't, which is a shame because there were some genuinely fantastic gems that were stuck on the system for the longest time. One of these was Gravity Rush, a game where you play as a girl named Cat that can control gravity itself. Using gravity to propel yourself and explore the open world, the game was quickly praised for its protagonist and gameplay mechanics and developed a strong cult following as a result. For a Vita title, it sold really well, so much so that it got a sequel that was also critically well received. Both of the games made their way to PS4, but the series went no further. Unfortunately, the development team behind Gravity Rush dissolved in 2020, but the series could easily get sent to another dev so that it could make an appearance on the PlayStation 5. Number 3, Wipeout. Wipeout is what would happen if F-Zero and Mario Kart had a baby and then it got addicted to hardcore techno music. You control anti-gravity vehicles as you race through futuristic tracks while using a variety of weapons to take the competition down a peg. It's everything you could want in a novelty racer with time trials, tournaments, and a mode where you have to survive while you just keep getting faster and faster. It's incredibly well rounded and the entire series has been nothing but solid. Surprisingly, this is the most consistent series on this list, with the game appearing on every PlayStation console including the PSP and Vita. The last entry in the series, the Omega Collection, came out for the PlayStation 4 in 2017, this time making full use of PSVR. It seems logical to do this all again to bolster the library of PSVR 2, and more than this seems to be a question of when, not if, the series will zoom onto the PlayStation 5 library. Number 2, Medieval. Sir Daniel, you beautiful mumbling skeleton, when will you rise from the grave again? Medieval is a gothic action-adventure game where you play as an undead warrior who is brought back to life to fight an evil wizard. With visuals intentionally looking like something out of a Tim Burton film, fantastic, dry British humour, and action-oriented gameplay, Medieval was critically well received. It was a beloved PS1 game and even got a sequel just a few years later. The original has already actually received 2 remakes, one for the PSP and one much better one for the PS4. However, nothing brand new has been seen since 2000. Sir Daniel made a rather prominent appearance in PlayStation All-Stars, but that was it. Hopefully the remake's success encourages Sony to revive the series for PlayStation 5, because if nothing else, I just need to see Sir Daniel Fortescue as a PlayStation mascot standing awkwardly alongside the likes of Kratos, Ellie and Aloy. Just think about how weird that would be. And number 1, Jak and Daxter. As if this series was not going to be on this list. Jak and Daxter defined the PlayStation 2 era for many gamers. Developed by Naughty Dog, the team took every lesson they had learned from their time on Crash Bandicoot and created a top-tier platformer because of it. As the series went on, the gameplay just got better and the story got more mature and more epic. The main trilogy is so beloved that a 4th game has been requested ever since Jak 3 came out in 2004. Instead of that though, there have only been spin-offs and bundles of the previous games. It's obvious that Sony hasn't forgotten about the series since it all got re-released for the PS4, and there are plans for a film adaptation. Of course, Naughty Dog has been busy with various other projects since their time on Jak and Daxter, but there's always hope that if enough hype is generated, they might either return to the series or hand it to new devs, which, yes, admittedly is a risk and perhaps why we haven't seen any new entries. Still, the nostalgic power of Jak and Daxter is something that Sony really should be taking advantage of outside of the silver screen. Let's all be positive about these series coming back, because all too often a franchise can be abandoned, and oh, wouldn't you know it, we've done a video on 10 amazing video game franchises that were abandoned. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching. I've been Sly for WhatCulture, and have a good week.